after 2 years of almost playing above their weight with on the Brian Flores era, the Miami Dolphins are really struggling at the moment in their first season under Mike McDaniel. Uh, Obviously, it started very well, going 8-3 and being the 2 seed, but they're now on the outside looking in. 8-8 of the playoffs after the loss to New England, which was finished by the third string quarterback Skylar Thompson. So they're 8-8 after losing five straight, and obviously, like I was saying, down to the third string QB, Skylar Thompson. And in Mike McDaniel's first season, it's been I'd probably say a roller coaster. The first three games were excellent, beating New England, Baltimore, and Buffalo. The Buffalo one, obviously, especially because in the Brian Flores era, the Miami Dolphins were 0-6 versus the Buffalo Bills. That after the three games, we really thought we had the next best young head coach. The Lafleur, Shanahan, McVay, Mike McDaniel. Obviously, he knows all three of them. It looked like he would be the next big thing, and he might still be. But since then, it's been a roller coaster of emotions to say the least. To start with, the Dolphins have been really unlucky. They've been without Tua for 5 games now. It will be, the Cincinnati game, the New York game against the Jets, the first one, and obviously the Minnesota game as well. Ultimately, if Tua was healthy, which obviously it is a massive if, because I don't think he's ever going to play a 16-game season. He's not got injured this year, but he has obviously had the three unfortunate concussions. I don't think the Dolphins are ever going to get a 16-game season out of Tua, and I think they've got to really seriously consider that now. Now, I would like, I was going to do this podcast a few weeks ago and do a podcast called "I Was Right About Tua Tagovailoa," because I believed in him as a quarterback. I knew that if you put everything around him, he can be, I don't even put everything around him because he's still got an average offensive line, but I believe he's up there with the likes of Kirk Cousins, Derek Carr. I'm not saying he's Patrick Mahomes, Justin Herbert, Joe Burrow, like those guys, Josh Allen, because he's not. But if Tua's in the NFC, he'd probably be the fourth best quarterback in the NFC, I think. And fourth, fifth. If this Dolphins team were in the NFC, they'd have 12 wins. If you're being completely honest, or maybe not. But it's with Tua. I think the thing is right. Yeah, it's just durability, and he's a small guy. He is a small guy, and this offense is built around Tua, and the fact that Tua hasn't been there has really contributed to the losses. I mean, 5 of the team's 8 losses have been there because Tua hasn't played the game. Tua was concussed in the last half of the Packers game, the game that he came out of in Cincinnati. That was another loss. And obviously the New England game which he missed, and it's the majority of these teams' losses have come because Tua hasn't been his full self or been in the lineup. When he has been in the lineup, bar the San Francisco and Chargers loss, the rest of the every single game other than that, the offense has been flowing like that. But the last month of the season, the Dolphins' offense changed. The teams figured out how to play them. Basically crowding the box because a lot of the concepts of Tyreek and Waddle wide open across the middle, and that we now know is not sustainable. And then we saw in the Buffalo and the first half of the Packers game, before obviously Tua sustained the concussion, the offense was back to it. They figured out how to deal with that. But unfortunately, with the way it's going, unless the Dolphins make the playoffs on Sunday by beating the Jets, and obviously New England losing to the Bills, if they play the Bills, I don't think we're ever going to see this offense in the postseason. It's not. I don't think it's going to happen this year, which is a shame because it was really good. But yeah, just unfortunately, Tua's availability is number one as to why obviously the season's demise. But there are a few other reasons why the team's just gone like that, and obviously injuries. The 2 years they were contending with Flores, the team were quite lucky. They didn't really lose anyone big at all, and this year they've lost, big chunks of the team, especially on defense. And it's like if this team, I don't think this team as it is now would do any better with Brian Flores because the defense it ain't working. Now, admittedly, with Flores, you probably wouldn't have Tua Tagovailoa at quarterback, and his dislike of Tua never really made sense to me because he won the most games of him. He never won with Jacoby Brissett, and again, Ryan Fitzpatrick was a bit too aggressive as well, so he did cost you sometimes. Even though Fitz had one of his career years in the Dolphins in 2019 and the start of 20, Tua was the best quarterback that Flores had at his time. I mean, it's not hard when you got Jacoby Brissett, Josh Rosen in there as well. But yeah, at the end of the day, I never really understand why Brian Flores. I know he didn't, it's come out since that he didn't want him. I think the consensus is that he didn't even want Herbert either. I think the consensus actually is that he wanted Jordan Love. Enough of Brian Flores. Like I said, the injuries have really stacked up. Like, why Chris Greer didn't address the cornerback position in the offseason when he knew Byron Jones would likely miss a big chunk of it. He's turned out he's missed all of it. Baffles me. Because they were a corner short anyway. Then Byron Jones got injured. So you've now got Xavier Howard, Nick Needham probably starting outside now because Byron Jones isn't playing. And then, you got nothing beyond them because Nick was your slot corner. So it's either you start, Noah Igbenog on the outside before the emergence of Kader Kohu, don't get me wrong. So you had Noah, you had Trill Williams, who also got hurt in training camp. And then, you're down to the Keon Crossons, Justin Bethels at DB like it has been recently. And it's not been pretty. And still, my mid-season, they didn't sign a veteran corner because there are plenty on the market. For example, Josh Norman's just signed for the Panthers again. He's one of at least 10 corners who would fit into this Dolphins defense right now and play. Why they didn't address that position when Byron Jones, he didn't appear on the field at all at training camp. He's still not practiced now, and it's week 18 of the season. It just baffles me why they didn't address the cornerback position because bear in mind this defense relies on corners who are great, on the line of scrimmage, man to man. It didn't make sense. And then Mike McDaniel's, he's not scot-free in all this because his consistency to abandon the run game so early, in games, is just, and also just not running at all on third and short. It's so bad. Like, the Dolphins have the worst third down offense in the past month. I think it's the worst third down offense in the worst, past month because every third and short is short pass and it's broken up because they know what they're going to do. The run game in the Buffalo game, especially, they abandoned that. I think the Dolphins would have won in Buffalo had they, keep running Raheem Mostert. He hit 100 yards in the first quarter. Just bear in mind he's a run game guru. I think this offense is too Tyreek and Waddle focused, and especially in the last month where they've not been as open as they were before. You'd think they'd go to the run game, and they did for Buffalo, half of it, and it's unfortunately just I don't know what Mike McDaniel was doing. Like his offense is based on the run. Shanahan's offense is based on the run, and yes, it is a little bit different. Obviously, you've got the RPOs, less RPOs than before too. Don't get me wrong, but still, there's a few RPOs in there, like there is with LaFleur's offense, that kind of thing. But it's why the consistency to abandon the run game or just don't use it. You start with it early, and then you just won't see it at all the rest of the game. Compared to what it was at the start, and this Dolphins team is built to handle a lead. Like we've seen, they've not been great behind. The Chargers game, because they didn't take the lead in that game, it was basically doomed from the start, for example. Mike McDaniel's not come scot-free here because I think I had a sneaky feeling before the season that Tyreek Hill would be a problem for this offense, and obviously he's not turned out to be as much as I thought. But the fact that he demanded the ball, and I don't know whether it is or not, but it's just like run the ball. It's been the same for the last month. We're just saying run the ball. The offense, especially the passing game, wasn't working to a T as much as it was at the start of the season. Run the ball, and he just didn't. He just the third and short passes, the amount of times I've seen 3rd and 1, it's like, we'll convert this, and it's just no, we're going to punt, or we'll go for it on 4th down and turn the ball over. There's countless times we've turned the ball over on 4th down this season. It's as somebody who obviously covers the NFL as a thing, but also as a Miami Dolphins supporter, it's quite hard to watch sometimes. The next thing, again, I don't understand Chris Greer here. I think he's an excellent GM, and if he loses his job, I'll be very disappointed. But he has had 2 major errors this season that I'm not happy with. The other ones, obviously, I've mentioned not addressing the cornerback position. The other one, Bradley Chubb. At the time, I was like, a 1 is a bit too much, but we'll see. We'll see how it goes, because he's never really been the premier pass rusher that you go out and get. He was great, as a B to Von Miller in Denver. This year, he was the main pass rusher. Actually, to be fair, he wasn't, because he had Gregory as well. With two pass rushers, it's got like a 1-2 punch. But I'm not sure Bradley Chubb is like your Von. I'm not. He is not Von Miller. He's not Nick Bosa, Joey Bosa, the pass rushers that you give a first round pick for. He's not a $20 million a year pass rusher, in my opinion. He's great, but he's not the thing that you give a first round pick for in the middle of the season when you're going for a playoff run. And then, bear in mind, you've already lost a first round pick because of the Tom Brady flirtation on the boat. It never really makes sense to me. And Bradley Chubb, I think it's 2 or 3 sacks. He's not made an impact. If anything, I could tell you now, Jalen Phillips is a better pass rusher than Bradley Chubb. It's facts. I mean, the two of them have a problem with finishing. They're great. They can create, they can separate really well, from the linemen. But the two of them, I could probably give you 10 situations at least where Bradley Chubb and Jalen Phillips have missed sacks this year already. In their they're just, you need someone who can actually finish the job off, and in my opinion, Bradley Chubb is not that. So I think that's a waste of a first round pick. Second or third, I think it would make sense. Ben One obviously was coming to the end of his deal, but the Bradley Chubb trade just never made sense to me whatsoever. And then you got the main three, and if these three men are still in Miami this time next year, I will be very surprised. Two of them go together. It's Jason Sanders and Danny Crossman. Jason Sanders had a great first couple of years in Miami, but the last 2 years haven't been great. He's 1 of 5 on 50-yard plus field goals. 1 of 5. I think the 2 or 3 games this season, especially the 3 points that Jason Sanders could have got from a field goal would make a big difference. Had Jason Sanders made the field goal in New England on Sunday, I think the Dolphins could have won that game. Obviously, the Teddy Bridgewater pick 6 to Carl Duggar, didn't help. But that would have been a very close game, and that was before Teddy got hurt anyway. But Jason Sanders, he's not the same anymore, and obviously he's not many kickers last 4 or 5 years in the team anymore. And obviously he's been a mainstay in the Dolphins team. He was there for all 3 years of Brian Flores, and obviously the 2 years of the year with Mike McDaniel as well. But Jason Sanders, unfortunately for him, I think his time as a Miami Dolphin has come to an end. And then Danny Crossman, the special teams coordinator. This special teams unit, I tweeted this in the Packers game. This special teams unit is, I think, the worst special teams unit I've probably ever seen on the football field. It is awful. When the Packers return, obviously he's had a very good career, Nixon, recently. He's had a very good, first couple games as a Packers returner. They've really found somebody who can make a difference, Cordero Patterson days kind of difference. He's a really good player, as a returner. And I just knew, when he went for that massive 90-yard return, I knew before. I was like, I have a feeling he's going to get at least to the 50-yard line, just even before Thomas Morstead had kicked off. Actually, it might have been Sanders, but before we kicked off, I knew straight away that was going to be, because they can't tackle. The amount of 30, 40-yard punt returns that the Dolphins special teams unit have let up is insane. It's, in my opinion, if Danny Crossman is still there, his kicker isn't doing well, and the special teams unit can't tackle at the end of the day. They can't bring returners down, and I think, unfortunately for him, I think his job is really on the line. And then the last one, Josh Boyer. Now, before the year, I was a bit skeptical on Boyer anyway, because the consensus was that it was Gerald Alexander and Brian Flores calling the defense the past year. Obviously, we saw a switch in how the defense performed halfway through last year. So I think just after the Baltimore game, the defense switched on and were playing very well. The first half of the year, the defense were playing much like they are now, with a lot more talent on it as well. And the what everyone thought was that Josh Boyer called the first half of the season. Joel Alexander and Brian Flores called the second half of the season, which helped them make a late playoff push at the end of last year. And I thought Jared Alexander would be the one. It would be the one they keep because everybody was talking about him being the next big thing. Like Peter Schrager was on about him for weeks, saying he could be a head coach candidate. And next thing you know, he's fired. And I thought, in obviously the whole Brian Flores thing, and that's probably the reason why he was fired. But yeah, just something seemed off from the start of the defense. Obviously, Josh Boyer kept the role, and the way the defense performed the 2 years of Flores overall, you'd think, oh, I'll keep the DC, especially kind of experienced DC now with a new offensive head coach. It makes sense just let Josh Boyer have the defense. But the way this defense has been this year, one, it doesn't really play like a San Francisco style defense that McDaniel I expect would want. But two, it's not been great. Like they've gone away from their man coverage to play a lot more zone this year. The amount of times that it's been third and long and they sent a blitz package because that's what Josh Boyer likes to do, and they've converted like a 3rd and 15. That again, that's happened countless times this season. Just Josh Boyer. It's not. I believe that's a theory. I think the theory is that it was Jared Alexander and Brian Flores calling the defense next year, and I wouldn't be surprised to see a new defensive coordinator in place for McDaniel next year. So yeah, that pretty much sums up my my beef with the Miami Dolphins at the moment, because, like I said, they've thrown away a golden opportunity to make the playoffs. The first time since 2016, they've got one of the longest playoff droughts. The Giants, even if the Giants and the Lions make the playoffs this year, it'd be the Dolphins and Jets with the 2 longest playoff droughts. And obviously, both of those teams have been pretty good this season. And all 4 teams, Dolphins, Jets, Lions, and Giants, could have all made the playoffs had it been a few weeks ago. Obviously, the Dolphins and Jets their season have curtailed, and the Lions and Giants their season. I mean, the Lions might not make it because Green Bay are good now, but the Giants, obviously, they've clinched the playoffs now. Again, they've been very unlucky with injuries. If Tua played 2 more games, they'd be a playoff team. And to be fair, 70% of this season they've played like a playoff team. But when it's really mattered, the injuries have hit. San Francisco and LA Chargers, the coaching staff didn't adjust enough, and those 2 losses, are inexcusable really. Every other game they've been in, but they've just been unlucky. They fall short, and it's kind of like it's riding the luck where it's like. The Dolphins very much rode their luck the last 2 years. Consensus wise, this team is a lot more talented than it was 12 months ago. But it looks like it's going to have the same, if not a worse record than a team that rode their luck 12 months ago because of just these reasons. But yeah, that's my Dolphins rant, I guess. Unfortunately, it'll be a nice surprise to see Skylar Thompson go out there and beat the Jets, presuming obviously Buffalo play New England and New England lose. It'd be nice to see Skylar Thompson lead a team to the playoffs, but I don't think it's likely. So I think this Miami Dolphins season is over.